not having a brand is not making me any money. So,
It's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
yep.
It's a
So,
bitch slap of truth right there.
yeah, for sure. And even she was like, she kind of brought some up interesting. She was like, go have a conversation with Jake, talk to him about this, talk to him about positioning the podcast as documentation, and that you guys just want to clip up reels and you guys are in the grind, you want to be business owners, but you're where you're at, and then take the recording of that exact conversation and just clip it up and post that. And that will do way better than your other podcasts of like, hey, here's how you run demos kind of thing, you know?
Right.
Let's spar, brother. But I think like more candid conversations of like how we usually do our spar sessions. Like you might as well just make content from that. And there's a lot of times where we have like 10-minute riffs that are like legit that we just never record, you know?
Right.
So we might as well record that and make 50 reels out of it, and just clip that portion and throw an intro like on top of that and go from there. Like sometimes our conversations, like I don't even know what the fuck we're going to talk about, and then 30 minutes later it's like, wow, we went deep on that topic, bro.
I
you
mean,
know um
I'm cool with that. I think we have to tread relatively lightly with what we say if we're going to post it on.
totally, yeah, no, I will. Yeah, we got to be very, very careful. Yeah, I would never put something out there that's like negative towards anything.
Right.
It would be more just like,
The concept.
yeah, the concept of, hey, our company just bought this tool. We still don't know how to do outbound. Like we're all trying to figure this out, and like positioning it a little bit better that way. Or we wouldn't use that. We would use like, hey, from a leadership perspective, like here are my thoughts on how leadership should implement new things, you know?
Right.
But even just like little snippets too. Yeah, I'm gonna get better at editing. But yeah, I'll make sure.
Yeah. How'd you make that little reel for
Dude, that
the
was with CapCut. It's like what all the TikTok users use.
cap cut?
CapCut. Yeah. It's not bad. And then my girlfriend was like, oh, you got to get this app and this app to do that. I was like, okay, perfect. So I'm all on board. But basically, I had a long conversation with her today on this because I showed her that reel or that little blurb, and she was like, dude, you can't be the business guy and the baseball guy. You gotta pick one. You gotta pick either the podcast with Jake, and like you guys just gotta go all in on that and start actually building a brand with that, or you gotta go the baseball route and build a brand that way. But not having a brand is not making me any money. So,
It's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
yep.
It's a
So,
bitch slap of truth right there.
yeah, for sure. And even she was like, she kind of brought some up interesting. She was like, go have a conversation with Jake, talk to him about this, talk to him about positioning the podcast as documentation, and that you guys just want to clip up reels and you guys are in the grind, you want to be business owners, but you're where you're at, and then take the recording of that exact conversation and just clip it up and post that. And that will do way better than your other podcasts of like, hey, here's how you run demos kind of thing,
Right.
which I do agree with to a point. I think it's also, I'll stop talking after this because I'm just owning the conversation. But
You're good.
the other thing too, like I could wake up and do this every day. Like we already spar, you know, we could even call the podcast like sparring, or like,
Intellectual sparring match.
Yeah, something like that, like intellectual sparring match, something like that. And it's literally just two dudes talking business, two dudes talking sales. Just like keep it that simple.
Right. So I mean, would it? I mean, what would our? Are we just like throwing niches out the window and just fucking talking and seeing what happens, or
Well, yeah, almost think about like all the people that are in our exact situation. Like we can't be the only people sitting here daily, like in a sales job, and we're like, we need to make more money, dude. We need to start a business. Like, what the heck's going on? Like, we can't be the only people in this situation.
I would doubt. I would doubt it. You know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we could, our niche is people literally in our situation that are our employees that want, to, that want to be entrepreneurs. So it'd be like entrepreneurs at this point. But we're like actually in the grind. Like we're actually, having conversations like this. We're actually starting a podcast. Like I'm actually giving lessons to 9-year-old kids to see if, baseball lessons is a good business to start. And just,
Right.
we talk about that stuff and we share the daily grind of, yeah, we're in this sales job. It's, we learned this about leadership today, or like I had a situation that I thought was really great from my leader today.
So if we were down the road to have anybody on as like a guest,
Mm,
what type of people would we be bringing on or like wanting to talk to?
I mean, I think bring on, like, we bring on Nate, we bring on like all the people we already mentioned, but the positioning is, hey, we sell software right now, but we want to start a business and own something and not be employees forever. Like we could even bring Jed on for that. We can bring Oliver on. I'd bring, yeah, more Nate, Alex Hermosi at some point, you know?
Right.
Like it could literally be like anybody in that realm.
You're just asking them like what type of I'm just trying to like get a grasp of the like if someone goes onto the podcast and like, oh, this is, Jake and Braden on whatever
Mm-hmm.
they talk about X.
Yep. They talk about and business, sales. Like that's a good point. Like what do we talk about?
Right.
Um,
Like, what I know like the audience will form itself essentially, but
yeah, but like what are all the things we would ask Nate? Like what the fuck would we ask Nate if we had him on?
off the top of my head, I mean the stuff I'd be genuinely curious about would probably be what it's like to be a founder of a startup, what his
Yep.
data is like, what it's like to raise money, what's it like to talk to investors, to scale a product with no marketing and solely via social media. Like
Yep.
probably stuff like that. I mean, everyone always asks him about like business cases and like,
Mm-hmm.
what are your top 5 discovery questions? But it's like, dude, I genuinely could care less. Like,
Dude, what if we did this and we almost took like a satirical take on it and we just like totally called it out and we're like, we are entrepreneurs. We want it, like we're the typical fucking bro that wants to start a business and we haven't fucking done it yet. We failed at this cleaning business thing. Here we are. Um
fully embrace who we are.
just fully like dude, that could be a good fucking podcast, man. That could be sick.
Literally just call it the Entrepreneur Podcast.
Literally just, yeah, honestly, something like that. Like we're literally just fucking entrepreneurs right now. And then as it progresses over time, like we actually start shit. And then that's our brand of like, We were just two dudes that wanted to do something and called out that we were freaking being pussies about it, and then we actually did something about it.
So there's wantrepreneur to entrepreneur. That's a thing.
Mm.
No, I don't think that's a bad idea, actually.
Yeah, that see that I can get excited for that too, and then that's like very natural too. You know, like I don't feel like I have to manufacture anything there.
Yeah, I mean you're not, and it's all like present tense too.
Exactly. Like I want to. I think the best thing we can do is just focus more on documenting things as opposed to manufacturing things. Like we're almost just like, hey, yeah, I've got two deals right now, or else I'm gonna fucking look like an idiot to come in. And then like literally just the stuff we already normally talk about.
Right.
And
I
then
mean,
it
it's still, is it going to be geared towards like just us having dialogue, or is it going to be like having people on that are like already entrepreneurs and talking about how to not be an entrepreneur?
both, I think. I mean, I I just think if we do a weekly podcast right now, it's gonna be impossible to get somebody on every single week at this point. Um, but I mean, more often than not, yeah, I think the interview style works really well. And that's like an easy way to leverage somebody else's credibility too.
What do you mean?
Like we're an obscure, never heard of before podcast, and then we have Nate on, and Nate makes like one post about it, and it's like now we have a ton of views or whatever from that.
Right.
So I just also like, I mean, as we've talked, we want to have other things already there for them to come back to also and see. So I think it's a combination of both. I think if we get we do 3 podcasts in a week for whatever reason, we're just like, hey, let's spar, and we just record every spar session. Some of them maybe we keep, some of them maybe we don't. But we just like record everything, and then even like the podcast, maybe we don't turn into long form. Like maybe there's a 60-second clip in there that we cut out, you know,
Right.
stuff like that. I just think we're already having these conversations. Like we might as well just record them and clip them and put them somewhere so that somebody else can either get benefit from it or see it, I guess.
Yeah.
On it, settle, buddy. It's okay. You're gonna be okay. He's pissed off. He's been locked in his room all day.
I'm just trying to think of just like why would somebody want to listen to it, if anything, like other than having people on that they like, but I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
have to
mean
deal with
it's
credibility and, but then it's like, yeah, like if I'm just trying to think, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think.
yeah. So I mean, maybe the short form content is like clips that we pull out of the podcast or like the nuggets of like actual shit that people care about. But I mean, there's like even the Iced Coffee Hour podcast with Alex Hermosi, the newest one they just dropped. Like I've heard literally everything in that podcast already, but I still listen to it.
Is there a new one?
Yeah, there's a new one they just dropped recently.
Uh,
But stuff like that. And then I mean, a lot of like long form content is a lot of people just hanging out, listening to somebody. If they want like the dopamine hit, then that's where we have the short form content also, which is just the best clips from our spar all put together. But if they, get a couple of good clips from the podcast or from the short form, then they click on the actual podcast that it's from, and you listen to that all the way through. You get some nuggets out of that,
right.
and maybe it's more relatable for some people too than like Alex Hermosi's obviously the goat, but maybe it's a little more relatable for like, hey, this is where we're at. And when we do have $100 million and, drop my book and do a big launch, my book, people will be able to come back and listen to this podcast and be like, wow, Braden had nothing going for him. And look at him now, you
Right.
know? Stop. Comment. Oh, fucker.
It's so funny on that webinar thing yesterday with Mosey. The guy's like, it's like, so I want to start a business. And he's like, okay. It was the way he said it was so funny. He's like, okay.
Yeah, and was that the one where he's like, I have this like two paths. I have the grand vision, or do they just like
No, he's like, so I see people like, like the Apples and Facebook
yeah.
and
Yep,
he
that
was
one.
just like, he's like, I'm not saying like don't chase your dreams, but like the improbability of that being impossible is very high.
Yeah, I love
It
like
was that guy. He's like, thank you so
yep.
much.
The first question he asked him, Mosey asked him, he's like, so do you have investors right now? And he was like, no, 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 I'm an entrepreneur. And he's like, okay. Um, then yeah, don't do that. Don't don't try and build the next Facebook.
So funny. It's just
But
like,
that's why Mosey's the dopest,
okay.
man. He's just real. Just
Yeah.
real. Stop. It's okay, man. But yeah, dude, I don't know, man. It's up to you, but I think, oh, that's the best I've felt about the direction of the podcast so far, you know?
Yeah, I'm just like if I was listening to the podcast, like like what am I gonna get out of it if I'm in our current state and I'm some avatar,
Mm-hmm.
like what am I gonna get out of it just listening to these guys who are in my same position, other
Yeah.
than just like entertainment?
I think maybe entertainment, but more so one, like you get context in that, like, hey, I'm not the only guy that feels like this and that has these problems and that is stuck at this hurdle point where like I'm an employee and I want to be doing things. And then also as we discuss like what we're discussing right now, like I think this is potentially helpful for somebody in our situation. Like imagine we don't already have a podcast and we come across two random dudes that are in the exact same position we are that are discussing how they're going to make more content and the reasoning for that and how we're just going to go more towards the documentation route and not trying to manufacture, how-to videos.
Yeah.
Just seeing that and being like, oh, well, I've got a buddy, can do that too. And then I don't know. Over time, I think it's also just like a brand building exercise too.
Right.
Like even if people don't ever listen, maybe nobody ever watches the long form content. Maybe they do, but I think the short form content is like the hook. And I believe in some of the nuggets we produce. Um, can go a long ways potentially. Um, so you see like some short form content, and you're like, oh, that was you know insightful. Let me go see what
Oh
else these
man.
guys have, and it's like, oh, well, this is these guys' brand. Like they're just two dudes that sit on Zoom calls at 7 p.m. at night and talk about how they can make more money. Like, oh,
Right.
okay, like I can get on board with that, and maybe that's our brand, just incessantly sparring on this shit and trying to figure it out. And maybe we do a lot of like recaps on Mosey stuff, right?
Right.
Like I think that's beneficial to like get other people's take on things. Like that's the whole point of ESPN or half of these other podcasts is just commentary on other people's content. We can do plenty of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the worst idea we've ever had.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, like YouTube. we do long form and short form of like it's the same shit, it's just clipped differently. And then Instagram also with short form stuff, which is again the same stuff, just clipped.
Right.
So make like a another Instagram page for that. It's just all like it's brand building going on in my head right now. And like I don't understand that term well enough yet. But no, just listening to Mosey about how important brand is, and then Lex with her being in PR at Disney, like she sees it completely differently because when people want to, when she vets people, like she vets influencers to see if they should give them free stuff or if they should have access to the parks and or if they should be featured for like a Disney collaboration or whatever. Like he's like, if you have less than 100,000 followers, like we aren't even gonna look at you. Like you don't matter.
Right.
It's like you. It's not that you don't matter as a person. It's that you don't matter from a social perspective. Like you don't have a brand that people know and care about in the social world, which is like really powerful right now.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with brands, what I mean, in my view, present tense, it's like how society associate or like what they associate you with.
Yep.
So like if we were to have a decent following, it's like what would that association be with this topic? Because like that
Yep.
matters when it comes to like, I don't know, with your brand. Obviously you don't want to be like associated as fucking douchebag, but
Yeah.
like the 30 Minutes to President's Club, like they associate those guys with interviewing like top salespeople for actionable tips. Like that's their association with
Yep.
podcast. So it's like when they see us and our brand, it's like, oh, those are the two dudes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and like that whole, I'm on associations right now with whole Robert Cialdini. I don't know if he made it that far. And
That
he's,
with the persuasion.
yeah,
Yeah, that book's good. I don't think I made it that far, but it's like there's other stuff like we can talk about.
right.
Like I mean, put another way, when Mosey talks about brand, he always brings up Joe Rogan. He's like, you think Joe Rogan started his podcast and was like, I'm going to talk about UFC and mushrooms and weed and
Aliens.
fucking health or what, like all that stuff? Like, no. He's like, he just started a damn podcast and asked people questions that he found interesting and brought up topics he found interesting. And it takes longer. It will take longer than like if we picked a perfect niche and like we only made content for like a perfect niche, like, it would be faster probably to gain a following. But I think long term, we'll be able to sustain it better if we just like literally hop on and do what we already do and just spar and talk about whatever the hell we think about. Um, we'll be able to do that more consistently and like long term that helps form our brand. Cause like right now, I don't even know what I want our brand to be, you know?
Guess I don't either. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I think maybe those things like come to fruition as opposed to you choose those at the beginning.
And like let it create itself almost.
Yeah, you almost let it create itself. And, right now, you and I talk a lot about like our current role and books that we're reading, stuff like that. Maybe it moves on from that at some point. Or maybe we add things in at some point. But like, no, I mean, Mosey has his podcast. What about the freaking Lex Friedman has his podcast? But like, that's all interview style, right? But like, what's his niche? What's like,
Well, I mean, he has like his niche, but then like he also has a fuck ton of credibility of like why
For sure.
somebody would listen to him. But
That's a
it's
good
like
point.
that's another thing is like social proof in a sense of people listen to like Lex Friedman or Andrew Huberman or I mean Joe
Yeah.
Rogan, Cormosey, like all of them had like, oh, like I could learn something from this dude. Like he's worthwhile to give my attention to,
Yep.
even consciously.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that would just be
Yep.
like my concern with this route would just be just like why would we listen to these dudes other than the fact that like I
Yep.
resonate with them and they interview good people and they ask good questions. So like if that was a route we were going to go, I feel like it would
Mm-hmm.
have geared more towards the interview style of things. Whereas
Yeah.
if two dudes who
Mm-hmm.
have scaled and built like $100 million companies each, and we were just shooting the shit talking about random stuff,
Yep.
I could listen to these dudes all day. Like they say valuable stuff and
Totally.
they
Yeah.
how society and our brain works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, yeah. I think we can do both. Like we can prioritize like the interview style podcast, but it like we do as much of that as we can, and then we fill in the other stuff with just our normal sparring sessions, you know?
Right.
So, in which at the beginning is probably going to be like 20% interviews, 80% sparring. And then over time, like that probably reverses to where it's 80% interview, 20% of sparring, you know?
Right.
Cause yeah, I'm with you. Like right now, not a ton of reason to listen to us, but I'm also thinking 3 years down the road when we do have successful businesses, coming back and listening to this podcast that we make today is different than somebody listening to it today.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And so maybe that's more the play right now is like the long term documentation play. Kind of like, I mean, it's like the same thing with Mosey, right? Like nobody was listening to his fucking podcast and nobody cared about him for 500 episodes.
That's pretty wild.
And then now, like, he's built up a ton of credibility through his brand and everything. And he has um, he actually did all of that shit before then to have the credibility. But like, we're in the process of building that piece too.
Right.
And maybe we don't necessarily need that much credibility. We just need more credibility than the person listening. And the other thing too is like we're not telling people what to do. We're just saying like this is what happened. This is what I think about what happened.
So we're getting away from like the informational or the not informational, but like
Yeah, we can still have that in there too, but maybe it's more like instead of this is what you should do on a demo, it's like I've had success running my demos like this. Like I think this is a better way to do it. And we just like, like a normal shit. Like just talk back and forth about that,
right.
And then all of a sudden we start talking about freaking Tim S. Grover and not being a bitch. Then it's like that's good content too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a paradigm shift.
Yeah. Yeah. My girlfriend's point was just like, just fucking make something. Just make a bunch of stuff. Quit quit doing like just vanilla stuff. Just like make a bunch of stuff and you'll get better at it. Yeah. And she doesn't even listen to Alex Hermosi. So I'm like, where did you come from, man? Like, are you a Mosey, like a closeted Mosey fan? Like you're just
She's got to be.
binging Mosey when I go to bed or something?
Yeah, she's watching all your history.
Yeah, there's something going on. She's done that a bunch of times. That was
Yeah,
funny. I didn't even tell her about that like reel that I sent you this morning. I didn't even, she's not here right now. She's in New York for a work thing. It's like I don't know. That took a long time actually. It's kind of embarrassing, but that took like 4 hours yesterday.
Really?
for me to do because I just like don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Um, but yeah, so I just like spent like 4 hours doing that. She's gone. She doesn't even know that that's going on. And then sent that to you this morning. I didn't even mention it to her. And then we just like FaceTimed over lunch. For whatever reason, she was on this tangent about how I should build a brand and start posting content and take our podcast and make something of it. Or if I want to do baseball stuff, like start making content about that. And I was like, what? How does this happen, man? Like, and I just sent her the video. I was like, yeah, I made this yesterday. Like, why are we having this conversation right now? It's just so weird.
Yeah, it is pretty weird, actually.
Yeah, and I was like, she was like literally just grilling me about it. It's like, you have no freaking brand. You don't do anything on social media. Like, you want to be this business guy, but you don't have a brand. Nobody's gonna listen to you. She's like, you need to do this, this, and this. And I was like laughing my ass off. And she thought I was like making fun of her, but I was like, and she was like saying how just put just take 7 hours to make a video exactly like Alex Ramosi makes his videos, and just do it. And then you do it once, you'll do it better the next time. And I was like, I literally spent 4 hours yesterday doing that exact thing that you just talked about.
Right.
And it was just wild.
So are you gonna send that video to like coaches or
The
create like a library of
well,
baseball shit?
the Mosey like Q&A where um the bookkeeper guy was on there. Remember that guy? He was like, yeah, I had to take a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where he was like, you need to post content and do outreach. And your content is not going to generate a lot of business for you right now, but it's going to be a way for the people you reach out to get value from you. It's like when you reach out to somebody and you're like, hey, I got this thing, they're going to go look you up on social media, and you need valuable stuff there for them to see, for them to eventually end up like picking your services. Like that was the reason for that particular reel. And that I've got three hitting three clients right now on the baseball side of things. And that was actually something, one of them, like I had a guy reach out to me, basically was like, hey, I got this 9.5-year-old, can you help him? And I was like, yeah, what does he need help with? And he was like, yeah, he's just like backing out of the box when the ball's coming at him. And I was like, I didn't send him that video. I sent him a separate video saying basically the same things. And I was like, oh, this is kind of easy. You just like make content about the shit that goes on, you know?
Right.
And I was like, the other thing too, like that kid has that guy has a 9.5-year-old. And I was like, if a kid is younger than 12, like I am 1,000% confident I can help them. Like if you if I wanted to be like a hitting coach, like a hitting guru somewhere, I don't feel confident helping like a 14-year-old kid get better. Like I could probably help him get better in a lot of ways, but like I just don't feel super confident. Like I didn't go hit 440 in Division I baseball. Like I don't have the track record to help that kid get better. But for a fucking 12-year-old, super easy, man. 12 and
Right.
younger. Like I was my other lesson, his dad texted me and was like, hey, can we work on defense today? I was like, sure shit, why not? Let's do it. And I was thinking, he's gonna kind of know what he's doing. Like, he's not like, horrible. But, like he just grabs the fucking baseball and starts chucking it off his back foot. And I was like, okay,
God.
whoa, man, we gotta slow down. And I was like, had to take him through like a basic throwing progression. I was like, all right, put your glove and just do the wrist throw. Like,
Really?
yeah. And I was like, there's probably a lot of kids just like, why can't I make content on, hey, if you have a 9-year-old kid and you're trying to teach him how to throw, here's a throwing progression to use.
Yeah.
And that's really freaking easy. Like, I know all of that stuff already. I don't have to go learn that skill. It's like that's kind of come to fruition for me just through coaching this kid. It was something that I didn't really want to do at the start. It was kind of like I'm not going to say no to $65 a week, but I don't want any more clients. But after doing it for a while, there's just been light bulb moments like that come up. And I just think to myself, why this is really easy. This is not this is not hard to do.
And it's also something you're teaching that you did for 20 years of your life,
Exactly.
which is kind of the hard part.
Why is that the
Well,
hard part?
the hard part of like what we're trying to do now is
Mm.
like you can easily like I can go and teach a high school baseball practice right now and like
Dude,
talk about
yeah, my mind was going. I was like practice plans,
right.
structure of like BP, defense. Like, dude, I'm like, I got all that shit on lock.
Yeah, it's like A, you have credibility, B, you can speak to it. But it's like right now with like this transition, it's like we don't have a ton of either,
Mm-hmm.
which is like the hard part with like positioning where to build a brand into our
Exactly.
because like and maybe that I mean not that we haven't talked about that, but like if we were to create like a baseball hitting company or
Mm-hmm.
coaching type platform, like that would be easy to talk to. It'd be easy to like, and you know what I mean? Like that's just all we've ever known. So
Yeah. It's like the back of my hand. It's almost
it's kind of like what Mosey did. Like the first 300 episodes were about launching gyms.
yeah, because you've done it a million times.
Yeah, you already did it. So like that's a hard part of like, oh, like we should talk about this, this, and this. It's like, fuck, like, we haven't really done anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But if we were like, hey, like, I don't know if there's ever like a podcast on, I'm sure there is, but like on hitting, it's like, fuck, like we could talk about that now. We could promote that now. And like,
Mm-hmm.
that would be easy, but long term, it's probably not the direction to go.
Yeah.
So I just think that's kind of like where I'm at right now. It's like, fuck, dude. I get like so much um imposter syndrome when it comes to like that shit. It's like I just haven't done shit. I haven't done anything.
For sure. We can't sit here and say, we're enterprise sellers that have hit quota 6 straight years and
Yeah.
the Chris Orlob show my W-9 statement or whatever that is, the W-2, making $1 million in a year. You don't have that right now, which is why, yeah, I just think the documentation route is the better way to go because you don't need credibility to say this is what happened. This is what I think about what happened. We would need more credibility to teach something or like teach a course, but right now, until we gain credibility, we can just again document what happened
Right.
or just talk like we normally do. Like all our like this conversation could turn into a great podcast. We can get some short form clips out of here.
Yeah, probably could.
I got to get better at editing though, man. It's a micro skill. That's
Yeah.
just,
It's not easy.
dude, that freaking curve thing, the Mosey uninformed optimism,
Oh.
informed pessimism, value that is just burned in my brain because you can just take this, for example. So easy to say, let's film a podcast, make long form content and short form content out of it. We'll put it on YouTube and on Instagram. Slam freaking dunk, man. And then you actually get into it and you're like, how do I make a channel on YouTube?
Yeah, like what's even step
How
one?
do I do that? How do I get those damn captions on my shorts, man?
Yeah, that's good for you for doing that.
Yeah, I've used an app to do it, but apparently most people use like the actual video editing software. But the CapCut helped me out with that one. So stuff like that. Yeah, that's why it took me 4 hours to make a 52-second video on something I know very well. And that was, I guess that's part one, making the content I knew that really well. That was took me 0 seconds to actually know what to say in that video. Actually filming it, cutting it up, editing it, that's the thing that took 4 hours.
Right.
The same thing here of if we go the documentation route, the actual content itself, actually creating it is 0 time spent. We just hop on the call and spar like we normally do. Whereas if we try and go the teaching route or the talk on a specific topic route, we don't have the credibility for that. And to get the credibility or actually know what we're talking about, it's going to take a little bit more effort.
Right. I mean, we do it and it fails, we're in the same spot we are. So,
Dude, no truer words have ever been said.
you know,
That's going to be a short form clip right there.
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure Mosey said that, but it's like you make the 100 calls and you get 100 no's. It's like, well, you're in the same exact spot. You ask the girl out and she says no, you're still single. Like,
Yep.
fuck it. Might as well do it.
That trash collecting business video is so funny, dude.
Pretty
He's
good.
he's really elevating the content game, but that was funny. His last when he's door knocking on Caleb's door or whatever, like the last one where he's like, and the third option, like you knock on the door, you start talking, the guy like slams it in your face, and he's like, "You're fine. You didn't die. Like you're in the same spot you were. Go to the
That's what
next door."
he did. That one chick that was like, she's like the writer for
Mm-hmm.
CEOs.
Yep.
He was, what's your goal? And she's like, I want to sell 1,000 copies of my book. And he was like, okay, what happens if you don't? And she's like, oh, I just, I don't know. I'll just be so upset. And he's like, okay, then what? And she's like, well, I don't know. And he's like, exactly. Like, you're gonna be fine. Like,
That hit hard, dude.
no. But that was also a good reframe for me. Totally off topic. Well, not really, but when she was like I wanted to sell 1,000 books, and he was like, okay. And it's like I'm doing like an after action review on my year,
Yep.
Navy SEAL style, and I was like, my whole thing was like, oh, I want to hit 120% of quota, which is like if I said that to Mosey, he'd be like, okay,
Yep.
like what else? And I didn't have anything else, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like that was like my sole metric, and it's like rather than creating an outcome where like instead of like sell 1,000 copies of a book, it's like, well, I could, spend 4 hours every single day doing some type of outbound or like marketing or something working on it to where it would be pretty unreasonable for me not to sell 1,000 copies of my book. Because then it's like, okay, what if I think he asked her, he's like, what would you do if you had to sell 10,000 books or else like they killed your family? She like, he's like, yeah, you'd make it happen.
Yep.
So it's like that made me reframe of like just kind of everything. It's like it doesn't matter what the goal is. It's like regardless of that goal, it's what would you do to make it unreasonable that you would make that like you would
Mm-hmm.
hit type of thing, which made me like just change the way I view like any type of when someone says like I want to start a business, like okay, like I want to hit 400. Like what would need to happen for it to be pretty unreasonable for you not to like come close to hitting 400? It probably wouldn't just be showing up to practice every day. It would be like getting a hitting coach, hitting before and after practice, like working on your mechanics, going to the gym. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
type of things. And it's like if you did all those things every single day, you might not hit 400, but I can promise you'll probably be better than what you did last year.
That
Like that fucking that's been in my psyche all day.
Same, dude.
You know what I
That.
mean? It's like
Mm-hmm.
when it's like do more outbound. It's like, okay, and like what does that mean? Like what do more outbound and what? What
Yeah.
do you
And what is the
here's
goal?
here's cadences, go use it. Like for what? What do you want me to do it?
Yeah.
Like do you want me to like what like it's just like I think there's like a you have a goal, whether it's like monetary or quanti like some type of metric, but then it's like that doesn't mean literally anything. Like it's just creating the system and the type of input to make whatever that goal is seem unreasonable that you wouldn't hit it over a longer time horizon.
Yep.
So like that's what I was just sitting there listening to that fucking now I'm really off topic, but like I was just listening to them like go through this whole cadence thing. So it was just like, so what? Like
For
A
real.
doesn't solve the root problem, but then like at the end they're like, yeah, go use it. Like gee
For
whiz.
what?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for what? Like I
we haven't
just
defined the goal and we haven't defined the inputs that can get us there. Yeah, that's been burned in my
yeah, that one
brain for real. Yeah, I couldn't sleep worth a shit last night. Freaking
really.
causing me lots of problems, man.
Yeah, that one got me pretty good. I'm sweating.
That was a huge, huge shift for me too. Because maybe I think it's more a human thing than a baseball thing. But for me, baseball wise, you've grown up. Yeah, you always have outcome related goals. And I want to hit 10 home runs this year. I want to hit 350. I want to play at the next level. And then I'm going to work really hard. And then like that's it,
It's okay.
you know? So that was a huge shift for me of shifting it to okay, that's great goal. That's great outcome to shoot for. Now what inputs, what actions will get you there? And not just what actions will get you there, but what actions would reasonably get you to 10x that. Like that was his. How could you sell 10,000 books? She's like, oh, this is how I do it. And he's like, okay, do that.
Yeah, she was like, I would knock on every single door. It's like she's like, you'd make it happen.
Okay, yeah. So just shifting that, and it's like, okay, kind of the Moneyball thing we do with outbound of, hey, based on the math, I need to make 100 calls, let's say, to get one meeting booked. It's like, okay,
Right.
I need 10 meetings this month, so I need to make 1,000 calls. Let me actually make 10,000. So then I for sure get my 10 meetings a month. And then you would look at that and be like, wow, that's not possible. So maybe that's a bad goal.
Right.
It's like that's one thing, or it's the other thing that's been burned in my brain that he keeps saying is in order to be great at any one thing, you start to realize that you can't do more than one thing.
Damn.
And so that hits me too when he says that. And you shift the goal from outcome to inputs to get to that outcome. It's like, oh, I actually need to put a lot more time in than I thought to hit that outcome just based on like the number of inputs I would need to get there. And you realize, oh, I need to make 2,000 cold calls this month. I can't write emails or like I can't do anything else. Like, I gotta just do this and
Right.
get really freaking good at it. That's been hitting me really hard too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that from like outputs to what's the input to get the output
Yeah, and
perspective.
then 10x that. It's like do that. That'll help just destroy most of your goals too, I think.
That's true.
Because if I'm thinking right now of the Warren Buffett quote where somebody asks him, how do you prioritize your goals or how do you achieve your goals? And And he's like, write out your list of goals, as many as you can,
Oh yeah.
prioritize them, take the top 5, burn all the rest, and then go after only those. Like you can probably do the same thing with this line of thinking of just thinking, okay, I want X. It's going to take Y times 10 to get to X. It's like that uses up all of my hours in the day just to get that one thing. And if you did that for like all your goals, you would realize there's not enough time in the day to achieve 2 of them.
Right.
So you just have to choose one, and that just continually smacks me in the face.
So kind of bringing it back, how do you think it applies to building a podcast?
For me personally, I've got the baseball thing. I'm thinking through of, oh, I could start this business with all this baseball stuff. I got to choose one of those is how it applies to me. Um, it also like that aside, let's assume like the podcast is the one thing. It also really forces us to make the podcast about our day to day because then we can stack on top of each other. You know, if we had a totally irrelevant podcast about cooking or some shit, like then we're like going 2 different directions. Like we're selling and then we're cooking. And it's like, but if we are selling and then we have a podcast about selling, like those are 2 vectors going the same direction, you know?
So is it going to be towards selling or is it going to be towards being
Well,
a
yeah,
entrepreneur?
selling just more general term for
Right. Just
uh,
whatever thing
what
is.
we were, whatever the hell our brand shapes into.
Okay.
And yeah, maybe, I mean, I think our, the summary of our podcast goes from right now, it's dudes, sales dudes that want to be entrepreneurs, or just even dudes that want to be entrepreneurs that currently sell software, or it's just dudes that want to be entrepreneurs. And then we talk about sales because that's just who we are. You know, that's just where we're at. And then 2 years from now, when we do have businesses, it's like dudes that wanted to be entrepreneurs that actually became entrepreneurs through sales or whatever, or however, there's like dudes that, entrepreneurs to entrepreneurs, which I guess is already taken. It's a podcast name, but fuck those guys.
Yeah, I mean we can divvy it up.
Yeah, my brand as we post these podcasts, if I keep swearing, is I gotta relax on the swearing. Just get hyped up.
That's fine. I don't care if I'm associated with swearing.
Yeah,
David Goggins will tell you that's how the world is.
100%.
But I guess if there's a no, fuck it, tough him up.
Yeah, fuck it, man.
No,
Yeah, I think it's real. I like it.
yeah, I got it. I'm gonna wrap my dome around it. So what would we just show up? I need to piss my pants. Hold on.
Setting the expectation has been another thing that's just been on my mind so much lately. Like how important it is to set expectations for people and communicate those clearly.
Yeah, I suck at that.
Yeah, that's been killer for me. Because if you, no, for her business, I guess mine now with 3 clients, but if you set the expectation, it's like, hey, I have a 9 to 5 job that takes precedent. I will help your kid out as much as I can outside of my work. And if we show up to the fields and there's not a cage open, like we just can't do a lesson that day, if you just set the expectation, most people are like, yeah, that makes sense. But if you're like trying to act like this super perfect business and you're like, yeah, I'll do lessons for your kid, blah, blah, blah. And then you show up to the field and there's not a cage open, they're like fucking pissed, man.
It's kind of like an accusation audit of a sort.
Dude, totally. Yeah, he's got to be really clear with people because I don't really like how my girlfriend runs her business sometimes. Like she'll show up 5, 10, 15 minutes late sometimes, and I just fucking hate that. Like I can't do that.
That drives me crazy.
But if you set the expectation of, hey, I have a job that sometimes I'm gonna be late. Like I'll give you everything I have when I get on. This is like secondary. I'll help you out. Like most people are like, okay, like they'll still get a little bit upset about you being late,
Right.
but same same scenario. But if they think that they don't have that context or you haven't set the expectation that way, the same exact scenario, there people are leaving.
Right. No, I 100%.
Yeah, it's been wild. All right, brother. I will clip this baby up and I'll send you all the short forms I come up with. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, should we make like a YouTube channel?
Oh, I got a YouTube channel for us already, brother.
Yeah.
Dude, come on. Selling ourselves, man. And I'll pull it up.
I thought we're unlocking entrepreneurship and
Well,
all
we've had a lot of
entrepreneurship.
transition here, man. I haven't I haven't had time to keep up the YouTube on with all the shifts happening, okay? Let me pull this baby up. I think we have like 7 or 8 videos uploaded.
Oh yeah, we do.
Oh, Mosey just dropped a new video. Damn it, don't get distracted, man.
Another one?
Yeah, it's titled I'm
Boom.
facing a $1 billion decision.
On it.
Today, we're introducing the next chapter of Notioning. It's called Q&A.
Sure.
So right now I have two.
Oh, there we go. Whoa, brother.
Did you watch that the one where he talks about not going home for the holidays?
Yeah.
That was fucking good.
Yeah, that one's been burned into my brain for sure.
That wasn't I thought that was one of his better ones.
Yep, that's our YouTube channel, man. Let's see. 8 videos. I don't think we have a single view yet.
Selling ourselves OT fifth.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Yeah, I don't know. Did that on my other channel too. Yeah, they're up here. Oh, 1 view, baby.
No.
3 views. Holy shit. 1 view. All right, man.
All right, brother.
I appreciate you, dog.
I'll catch you.
Later.